Right side of the field. That is Mr. Rob Collings in the cockpit for the Collings Foundation. Rob is now lifting the Wildcat right up and off the ground. Let's listen in to the sound of the engine and the mighty Grumman FM-2 Wildcat. Workout this morning. There's a tiny crank inside that cockpit that you have to get on with your left hand or right hand there and start winding up the landing gear. All while you're trying to fly the airplane, of course. Early technology, but it certainly made a killer out of this airplane. The Wildcat was truly the only effective fighter available to the United States Navy and Marine Corps in the Pacific Theater during the early part of World War II. So back in 1941 and 1942, this airplane was truly a technological marvel. Names like Foss come to mind. The former governor of South Dakota, Mr. Joe Foss, became an ace in this airplane. And today, Rob Collings and the Collings Foundation of Stowe, Massachusetts, offered this airplane at displays just like this to help tell the story of those brave men in World War II who fought against unseen odds over hostile territories and places that few of us have even heard of today, all in hopes of preserving our freedoms that we so enjoy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from the left on a beautiful photo pass, please welcome Mr. Rob Collings and the Collings Foundation's Grumman FM-2 Wildcat. Wasn't the fastest thing in the sky. It had a speed of around 318 miles an hour. But the Wildcat could outperform and fly faster than some of the longer range Mitsubishi A6M0s, giving the Wildcat oftentimes the advantage. But the Wildcat's ruggedness, coupled with that lethality that the pilots trained with back then, resulted in an air combat kill-to-loss ratio of 5.9 to 1. And that was back in 1942. Later, after the entire war was over, the little Wildcat had a 6.1 kill ratio for the entire war. That little airplane, ladies and gentlemen, was truly one of the defenders of our freedoms, and it's often overlooked to guys like the P-51 or even the Bearcat or the Hellcat. But those who flew the Wildcat, they knew the real story. This little airplane was a friend of both the Naval aviators and the land-based Marine Corps aviators. And the Grumman Wildcat flying for you today is truly a historic sight to behold. On this next pass, Rob's going to crank in a little more manifold pressure and bring up that right 1820-56, all the way to full power. You'll hear the 1,350 horses cranking underneath the cowling here on this next pass. Let's watch now as Rob executes the turnaround maneuver there on the left side of the field and brings her back. Here we go, from the left, ladies and gentlemen, the Collings Wildcat. The Collings Foundation, a nonprofit organization based in Stowe, Massachusetts, operates a number of World War II aircraft, including the barnstorming bombers that many of you have probably seen or even heard of, perhaps even flown on. If you'd like to take a ride on a B-17 bomber, or maybe a B-24, even a B-25, the Collings Foundation can make that happen. You can visit their website at collingsfoundation.org and learn more about the 25-year Wings of Freedom tour that is currently flying over the skies of California. Folks, when you go to a museum, oftentimes you'll see these airplanes sitting quietly in the corner, just waiting to tell their stories. But right now, hear the roar of the Wildcat at Airshow Center. earlier today, and he said that if you are in the area of Stowe, Massachusetts, not too far from here, Father's Day weekend, put that on your calendar. They will be hosting their own event up there called American Elegance. One of the great things about the Collings Foundation is that they not only operate vintage military aircraft, but they also have one of the foremost collections of American and foreign cars, all from the 1920s and 30s and even before. American Elegance will be going on Father's Day weekend there at their museum. Now from the left, the FM-2 Wildcat. Insignia there indicating that that particular aircraft would have seen action back in 1943. You can see the red ring around it. One of the fine designators on this particular airplane. And a little local knowledge for the aviators out here that perhaps trying to get a picture of this particular Wildcat. When you go back home, if you have a nice camera and you're out here shooting, you'll see a tiny window on the back side of the right-hand side of this airplane. Believe it or not, folks, this particular aircraft has a full executive interior right behind the bulkhead. So this is one of the only Wildcats in the world, probably the only Wildcat in the world that you can actually take a ride in. Let's watch now, though, as Rob racks it right back around and brings her back for another pass. Rob Collings is one of the rare warbird pilots out there that can strap on a Wildcat. He can also crawl in the cockpit of a Skyraider, as he'll do just a few minutes from now. The particular Skyraider that they have operating out here today, that you will see fly in a few more minutes, is one that was based right here at Quonset Point back in the 1960s. Rob is a pilot who has grown up around this stuff, and he sure enjoys sharing these airplanes with you today. The Grumman Wildcat, though, one of my favorites. It's one of the oftentimes overlooked aircraft of World War II because it fought so early in the war. As we said, it has mechanical landing gear on the front that you actually have to crank up with a bicycle-style crank. But it is such a killer in its own right. 6.9 to 1 kill ratio. Just listen to this. Side of the Wildcat. A side you wouldn't want to see if you were a Japanese troop out on an island somewhere. Rob would have just spotted you now, showing you some of the tight turning capabilities of this little airplane. In a dogfight, the Japanese pilots truly feared the Wildcat because it could simply out-turn and could out-maneuver most of the long-range fighters that they had back then, the long-range version of the Wildcat. Pardon me, of the Zero. Long-range version of the Zero is truly an equal match for this airplane. Let's watch now as Rob lowers the landing gear. He's cranking him down right now, and he's going to be lining up for an approach. Just imagine, if you will, you're on the deck of a carrier and you're watching this airplane land back in 1941. The deck is wildly pitching in the wind and the waves, but the little Wildcat, its tail hook will come down and grab that number 3 wire. Rob is going to land so short in this airplane. Just watch. He's going to touch down and hardly use any runway at all. The little Wildcat can operate not only on the deck of a carrier, but on some of the smallest islands that our troops operated on in World War II. Let's watch now as Rob Collings lines her up on final approach, the Collings Foundation's Grumman FM-2 Wildcat. Let's watch for the touchdown spot. Right around the windsock here. He's going to touch down and go long. He's going to park her down the other end. So there we go, right at Airshow Center. Rob Collings touching. He's going to keep the tail up here and expedite his taxi maneuver just a little bit, so he's not going to show you just how short that airplane can land. But trust me when I say that thing can get down and stop in a heartbeat. It can. You saw the takeoff. Please stand up and cheer, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Rob Collings, operating that gorgeous Grumman FM-2 Wildcat. Those particular airplanes, you just don't go down to the Wildcat store and buy parts for it, nope. Rob and his family lovingly maintain an entire fleet of World War II airplanes.